Welcome back. I'm Tedward, and today, thanks to Bond Group in Waltham, Massachusetts, we're driving a 1986 Porsche 911 3.2 Carrera. This car is significant because in '86, this was the last year of the 915 gearbox. Subsequent cars came with a G50, which was thought to be more robust, a little stronger. People typically prefer those cars, and the market says so because of the prices. However, there's a lot to love about a 915. They're a little more positive, they're a little notchier, they're a little more responsive, and they're also lighter. So those who are looking for a really easy experience and able to buy higher mileage cars typically flock toward the G50s because the synchros hold up a little better. But those who really appreciate a more raw driving experience with the lighter transmission, well, they go for the 915s. And today, let's celebrate the bigger engine with the 915, because prior to the Carrera mark coming back, that was a big deal. The SCs were fitted with a 3-liter, less powerful flat 6. This 3.2 Carrera was a big deal. A, to bring back the Carrera name, but B, to put in a larger, more robust engine for the mass market. And these G model cars, as they're known, they're not 964s, they're not 901s, they're this weird middle ground of like a million generations of 911 between the first and then the 964. So it's always frustrating when people say, oh, what generation is it? Saying G model is pretty vague and broad. So those who know, if you say 3.2 Carrera, that usually tells you enough. And then if they ask you the question about the gearbox, then you know they actually know their stuff. So let's take a look around. This one is very similar to mine, aside from the fact that it has a 915 instead of a G50. And you can always tell this because the gearbox, really quick, you'll notice reverse is where 6th gear essentially would be, whereas in a G50, it's next to first, like a typical Volkswagen or BMW. But inside, these cars are always basically the same. This one has 106,000 miles on it, and it's clearly been kind of taken care of. You can usually tell by its sun damage on the dashboard. This one looks phenomenal. There's no cracks anywhere. I started to get a crack on mine, and I'm a little bummed out. But I think it looks really nice with this sort of tan interior. And what's cool about these cars, they get a little bit of patina, but they hold up well. Any other car, I feel like this would be all cracked and broken and ripped. This isn't torn at all. It just has this marbling. And when I first looked at this car, black is always an unforgiving color for these old 911s, especially if they haven't been like repainted. My car is similar, where it's just lots of swirl marks, little chips here and there, but black and guards red are really just the hallmark colors of these Porsches. And unlike mine, which has been pretty much stripped inside, this one still has the kinder seats in the back, which can fold up. I don't think I'd want to put anyone back here, but the lovely part about this is you get a nice parcel shelf. This one also still has air conditioning and radio with speakers, so these are great. And what's crazy is these aren't cheap anymore. This used to be kind of the cheap entryway into a 911, and that's just not the case. These are kind of in like the somewhere between $65,000 and $95,000 depending on condition. Some go over 6 figures even with the 915 gearbox, which is just bonkers. However, they do deliver a pretty distinct and wonderful driving experience, and these are the first ECU controlled engines that Porsche ever made. So it's of course fuel injected. We can pop this open, and unlike modern Porsches today, you can see pretty much everything. So this is your AC unit. A lot of people dump that for weight, but if you're living in California or somewhere where it gets hot, you might regret that. And then a giant oil filter over here. It's great when you can kind of poke around here and just figure out like, hey, are we good? Are things all right? This is not the case in modern 911s. You open a little flap now and you see 2 little fans and an oil fill and a coolant fill, and that's it. This one has this gorgeous intact rubber sort of whale tail. These are great, but they do wear out because remember, this is rubber, so this can degrade. This looks really nice. So again, when you're looking for these cars, these are kind of those little things you look for where you're just deciding like, how well was this cared for? And you want to see the authenticity with the Porsche crest here and the written out logo there. This was also a time of impact bumpers, which is maybe not the greatest look. I think they kind of have a nostalgic vibe to them. I know they don't look the best. I've got roof bumpers on my car, but These are a lot more durable. So actually, if you did get in a little fender bender, my fiberglass bumpers aren't going to do me much good. These should do the trick. And in terms of fashion and style, history always repeats itself. I mean, look at the denim world right now. People are wearing baggy jeans again. That's something that we did in middle school back in the late 90s and early 2000s. And suddenly it's back. Skinny jeans are out, and now I need to refashion myself. But the same goes for Porsches, because if you look at 992s, well, they're starting to fashion their styling cues off of these late model G bodies, G models, because they went back to a square mirror, and even the frunk is now squared off in the new 992. So if you look at a 992 versus a 991 or a 997, the 991 and the 997, they're rounded, and then they're coming back to a square design. So I think maybe subliminally, this is why these cars are getting so hot, because they are actually in vogue. And this isn't the first time we've seen this happen, because in the past, the 964 was actually the ugly duckling of the crew, because 993 was a lot smoother and rounder. It had a more modern vibe to it. And yet now, people really are obsessed with 964s. 964s really had a glow up in the last 10 years, and they are through the roof in terms of prices. So I think that Porsche is always a little ahead of themselves in terms of their fashion and style, but then they always go back and kind of use old styling cues to bring them back into the modern era. This one's got a sunroof, and I love that because it just adds so much to the experience in the cabin. But anyway, what are we working with for wheels? These are freshly refinished Fuchs, or Fuchs, as I get corrected on all the time. It's colloquial. I know it is a correct and incorrect way to say it, but if I said Fuchs, I feel like people don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, up front on this 16-inch wheel, it's a 205 section tire, and in the rear, a 225 section tire. There's a lot of different staggered setups for these cars. Not all are the same. I've got the turbo setup. Mine are a little wider at the back, but what's great is that you're finally able to get a few more options out of 16-inch wheels for tires. Tires are very difficult on these cars, so always make sure that if you're looking at these, you're like, hey, make sure that you actually have good tire options. I was kind of forced into an R888R, although I'm pretty sure a Bridgestone Potenza Sport now fits the car. I got to talk to my guy Davis over at Bridgestone Firestone to find out if we can fit those on my car. Unlike the older cars, unfortunately, these do not pop out. That would be so cool, and I wish you could do that, but that's all right. And then let's just do a quick look in the front, because if you're looking at these and thinking, hey, what can I do for storage? You've got plenty of room, like I said, on that parcel shelf. But then up here, unlike mine, this has all the carpet and stuff. You've got reasonable space, but it's not like that depth that you get in a modern Cayman or 911. It is a little flat. So you got to make sure that whatever you can get in there fits. And then, lovely under here, a Vredestein tire for your spare. That's original. You can see the date code on that is 886. That is something that's so funny. You see that on way back even to like the 356s, the same way they stamped those. So it's always nice to see a little heritage in the Porsche world, but let's go out and row some 915 gears, because this one is a peach. This video wouldn't be complete with a little attention paid to the ASMR fans. The door close is great. Always nice to hear the sort of typical bank vault doors that these things have. It's really great. Anyway, let's get her started up. Key in the left, of course. We're in neutral here. Talk about jumping right to life. This is fantastic. Now, we've got our 5-gauge pod layout here. So you've got fuel, oil level. Now, we've just gone and checked the oil level on the dipstick. This is reading a little high right now. These are notoriously wonky. You've got to be in like the perfect position at the perfect temperature, all of these things for that to work. Oil temperature, some older cars do not put numbers here, so you just have these hash marks. Mine has the numbers, this one has the hash marks. Over here, you've got your oil pressure, the Druck press. So that's always nice to see. You're going to want to see that oil pressure going up. And then a tack, a speedo, odometer, and a clock. Very simple stuff. This one is not cocked and rotated to the side to put the red line at the 12 o'clock position. That's fine. This is how it came. And 106,707 miles. Fantastic to see. Little tricks. There's an ashtray there. Don't smoke in your Porsche. And let's see, somewhere, there we go. That is our cigarette lighter. If you need to, you shouldn't. Don't smoke. It's not good for you. You're going to be breathing enough oil from your air cooler Anyway, this one's in great shape. We've got everything working okay. Yeah, even the lights, it's great. Heating system in these cars, always really weird. It kind of tells you where do you want it blowing, how much do you want it to blow, how cold or hot do you want it to be, and then you've got these guys down here, which opens up those heat exchangers, because the wild thing about these exhaust systems, and this is why they get very expensive, and a lot of people don't even have heat in their 911s, because remember, your heating system in most of your cars is through your cooling system. So what happens is you get these heater cords, these big metal sort of radiator looking things, and your hot coolant goes through those and then blows air across them to give you heat in the cabin. Well, these are air-cooled cars. There is no coolant. There's simply oil. So what they do is there's shrouds around the exhaust manifold, and then air is blown over the hot exhaust and into the cabin. So if you have an exhaust leak into the heat exchanger, that's a very bad thing, because then you're bringing exhaust into the cabin. But that's how it works. So this is essentially just opening those fins to allow air in and turning on the fan with certain fan speeds. Yes, and I still probably, gun to my head, don't exactly know how to use this. I'm still fiddling with it. I've owned my car for 10 years, but I don't drive it when it's that cold, so I never really think about it. Okay, parking brake down, into first gear, and what you notice in these 915s, first gear is always like, feels like a short throw. Third too, yeah, it's kind of wild. Oh, the sweet sound of a 3.2. Dude, this like just never gets old. I know a lot of people look at this as sort of like the ordinary, almost entry-level 911. I just disagree. I think this thing, I mean, the market agrees with me on this. These things are just so good. We've got floor-mounted pedals. I think a lot of people really need time to figure that out. I've made a lot of friends in this industrial park over the years because I'm out here shooting different cars all the time. So there's a group of people that regularly walk up to me and ask me like, hey, what's this all about? And I just play like it's like a car museum coming to the office park. Anyway, these floor-mounted pedals take some people a little bit of time to get used to. There's also no power steering. So the culmination of all this in essentially a mid to late 80s car, it is a little disconcerting for some people, because this is sort of like 60s tech feeling stuff sometimes in a mostly modern vehicle. But yeah, this is making me yearn a little bit for an unmodified 911, because the suspension in this car is so forgiving. Something tells me this one might be tuned. A lot of people, like myself even, we have Steve Wong chips in the cars because they are tunable cars, and you actually put a physical chip in the car, and that changes the engine map. And it's only about 220, I think 228 is what they're rated at, but it's not a heavy car. We'll heed the sign, but this is the thing, these are the perfect sports cars. They make for just a really nice, rewarding driving experience, but they're not arduous to handle and drive around in normal life. In addition, as we're going slow up here for these fellas, there is a little light in the tack that is gonna come on, and it's an upshift light. All it does is say, nice and slow over the bump. There we go. Lovely. And there it is right there. It's just telling us to save fuel, that's all. And it's just an upshift light. You would have seen this in like a Saab at the time too. It's nothing all that special. It's just that people really get concerned about what that means. I've had people on my channel about my car say, oh, low oil level, all this. I'm like, no, it's just an upshift light. It's literally meaningless. And it is an annoying thing. I don't even see it when I'm driving. You see it when it's on video because it's what you're staring at. But my eyes are not here, they're there. Look at that, bunch of sidewall on these tires, so it allows you to kind of get over the bumps without worry. That's what I mean, these things are just built to drive. They're built to be on real roads. And I gotta tell you, when you get into some new Porsches, you get into a brand new GT3, they're so stiff. They're so stiff and you're like, where am I supposed to use this? In these old cars, you're like, yeah man, just send it. It's good to go. It's happy. You can't tell me that's not quick. I mean, sure, the 0 to 60 is in the 6-second range, which is not alarmingly fast, but the way this just continues moving, once you get it rolling, it's so good. There are others who are more masterful with the 915 gearbox than I'm not trying to abuse this car today, so just being nice to it. Patient shifts. But you really do feel more involved with the 915 than the G50. It's less sludgy, I guess is the word. G50s do feel a little bit sludgy, if that makes sense. Whereas this, it just feels so manual. It feels so connected. You know, you're gonna even feel the stick moving around a little more in those shifts. I highly recommend, if you're in the market for one of these though, drive it first. Like, find out, because someone could say, oh, I have a 75,000 mile car with a 915 gearbox. Okay, sure, but how has it been treated? Because I have driven such a wide variety of these where some days I go, oh my God, why would you ever want a G50 over a 915? That's the best thing in the world. And I've driven others where I'm like, I can't get it into third gear without a crunch, or there's just frustrations. And I just think that the condition of the gearbox can vary so greatly. And if you're someone who's not patient without really robust synchros, you're in for like a bad time. Dude, like, you don't need to be that close to me. Good thing we got impact bumpers though. Luxurious power windows. Oh yes. Fresh tires make for lovely on-ramp experiences. That's very creepy to have the Joker on the back of your Grand Cherokee. I am not a fan. Not a fan. Seriously, what are you thinking? So in a corner, this manual steering setup, no power assist, is just sublime. It's so good. You feel everything, and that's the hallmark of a Porsche, is that driving characteristic, is its rear engine. So in a corner, throttle means understeer. You push the front of the car forward, lifting off the throttle, transfers that weight to the front so it gets you to turn in nice and well, but it also lifts weight off the rear. That's why you get that lift off oversteer, because it rotates. So the steering, I think, plays such a critical role in that. And it allows you to make those sort of like micro adjustments to get the car exactly where you want it, when you want it. Out on some open highway, yes, you can feel a little small and vulnerable, but honestly, it's stable and planted. This is one of the great things about these 911s, is that while they don't take up a lot of real estate in a parking spot, and they're easy to maneuver around, and they're fun and light and great in some twisty corners, they're also phenomenal little GT cars. Like 70 miles an hour, under 3,000 RPM. I actually think that I gotta look at the numbers. I gotta look at my car. I'm pretty sure that the final drive in a 915 is slightly more optimal than a G50. I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure they're a little different. I feel like my car would be a little closer to 3,000 RPM in this scenario. And these seats, oh my goodness. I'm used to being in this cabin in my car with Recaro pole positions, which are very comfortable for a racing seat, but these are just fantastic. They've got great side bolsters. They're real handsome looking seats too. They look fantastic. And I love it when something looks really cool and also delivers on the comfort level, as well as being supportive in a corner, because this is a sports car after all, and you're gonna be tempted to chuck it into a corner. You're not gonna be flopping all over the place like you're on a couch. In terms of fuel consumption, before we get on to some little back roads, these aren't bad. They do like, I don't know, I think I get like 22 to 24 miles per gallon out of my car. It's not bad. And you get a massive fuel tank up front. It's like a 20-gallon tank. And that needs to be mentioned, because cars today, my goodness, nothing has any range anymore. Even my Honda, it's like an 11-gallon tank and gets 29 miles per gallon. It gets you 300 miles or so. These things, man, great road trippers, because you just never have to think about fuel. If you fill up on the way out, you're probably good for the entire trip. You can't tell me that's not enough speed. These things are so good. Rolling the throttle nice and gentle. You don't want to give too many revs and bog these flat sixes down. And the stock brakes on these cars are pretty darn good. Mine has the turbo brakes. I don't know that it needs it. I mean, sure, it was put in the car for track stuff, so you get more repeated stops out of it. It has probably more thermal capacity, great, but my goodness. These 3.2 Carreras, is just like a little holistic package on their own, basically stock, are so good. They're so good, and that's why they gave it the Carrera name. They brought back the Carrera. That actually meant something to Porsche. See, we can see into the corner. We are good. Give this fella loads of room. We'll not blare him full of exhaust because we've got that left exit. Wonderful stuff. I don't recommend passing anybody on a blind corner. That corner's not blind. You can see through the trees. So don't call me out for just going across double yellows. And if you're mad at that cyclist because you're like, oh, he took up a lane, well, A, he's entitled to the lane. So that. The second point doesn't even matter. But B, this road is torn up, and he was just taking the road less treacherous, which is totally fair, and he's entitled to it. Speaking of road, it's a narrow car. You can actually play with some lines within a lane. You don't have to go breaking any crazy laws and traveling across a single yellow or a double yellow line, which you should never, ever, ever do. But like, dude, you get into new cars today and they're so wide. You don't have like this freedom to pick and choose your line within a lane like you do in a little old car like this. What on earth is this little guy? I saw it come out of the cemetery, so I think we're looking at a gravedigger. Let's see, we can get around him. We got enough torque. So the thing about these cars is that they're pretty expensive, and if your friends all spend, you know, $80,000 to $120,000 on cars, chances are they're driving some like fast, modern stuff. You know, that's a lot of money to spend on a car. So if you want this sort of raw experience, this is the conundrum I found myself in. You got this raw experience. You're not keeping up with like GT4s and stuff. You know, that actually makes for a troubling friend group when you're like, man, now I can't go drive with my buddies because nothing makes sense. That's a great little Veloster, and you never see those. For whatever reason, you never see like secondhand market Hyundais. It's like they exist for a minute when they're new and then they just like disappear. But make sure that if you don't have a group of like small classic car friends, you have a group of friends who have like slightly slower vehicles, because yes, this has some like ludicrous 160 or 165 mile an hour speedo. You're not going to do that. I think I've done 140 in my 911, and I don't want to go faster than that. It's crazy. It's not something you're going to do. And if your friends do this like kind of crazy desolate highway runs, this is not, you're going to go 100 and you're going to be like, I'm good, maybe 110. That's about it. That's about as much as you're going to want to do. And if you want, you know, some fun little back roads, this will do the job. It'll keep up nicely because it still, you know, pulls a G on a skid pad and everything. But just know that you might be left for dead if your friends all drive GT3s. The masterful art of trying to time an open on-ramp, it's just becoming impossible. There you go. I mean, that's the thing. This car is rewarding at pretty much all speeds, and when you push it, it just feels real. It feels authentic. You know, you don't have any nannies to like interrupt you. I feel like when I drive modern Porsches, and I mean this in the most loving way, you like can't crash them. Like if you mess it up in a modern Porsche, like you pretty much pointed it at a wall. And with this, you have to be thoughtful, you have to have intention, and you have to be smart. But you also have to listen to the car. It's going to give you feedback. And these old air coolers are valuable for a reason. And these particular Carreras, these 3.2 Carreras, just hold such a valuable place in the market because they are still like relatively cheap. Love a GR Corolla. I am so distracted by everything. They are so good at pretty much everything, and they're fast enough to keep up with modern traffic, just not your rich friends and their brand new Porsches. And that is where the conundrum comes in, because you're gonna drive alone, or do you have a bunch of friends with some vintage classics? And if they have real vintage classics like Aston Healey 3000s and stuff, now you're the hot boy, you're the real hot rod. So I am gonna go return this 3.2 Carrera. Of course, the first 3.2 Carrera of the season that I drive is not my own. This is the thing, people are like, why don't you drive your own cars? It's like, because my job is to drive cars, and sometimes I have to drive other people's cars before my own. It's like the cobbler's shoes thing, right? Doesn't the cobbler have the worst shoes? Or the mechanic has the worst car? Something like that. Anyway, I love you. Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Did I just say I love you? Okay, well, I mean, I do. But that's gonna do it for the 3.2 Carrera. Don't forget, to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one.